And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Okay, here with you, episode number 89. We're on a great day in New York, sun shining on this lovely Monday, and of course, the Knicks get a big win over the Pistons in Game 1 of the weekend of the first-round series. 21-0 fourth-quarter run when it looked like the Pistons were going to steal Game 1 at the Garden. The Knicks took over. What does it mean for the rest of the series? Game 2 tonight, a key injury for the Pistons that we're going to monitor. And the Game 1, was that the only chance Detroit had to steal a game in this series? We'll talk about that. Another Game 1 locally this past weekend, the Devils lose to Carolina and pretty much look outlast a lot of other games in the first game. Then the Devils regroup. We have the NFL draft on Thursday. And there's an interesting nugget about Shedeur Sanders, who's a giant player and a family member that are kind of related to Shedeur in some way, shape, or form. We'll talk about that. We'll do a 3-round mock draft. We'll go Giants and Jets of our predictions on what might happen coming up on Thursday in Green Bay. A lot of drama with Aaron Rodgers and why the Jets should get credit for not saying anything first time in a while. The Yankees take 3-4 hits by Ritter Field. The Mets sweep the Cardinals in a 4-game series, starting to play well. We got Optimists putting up goals out in the West Coast in California. Red Bulls take a bad loss. NYCFC takes a bad loss. We've got transfer portal news for both basketball and football. So much on this show. Join me for the next, hour plus to learn more about what's going on in New York City. And thank you once again for tuning in to New York State of Sports this afternoon. Ricky K here with you in the house. Want to remind you, of course, that you can follow us on X, IG, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. Get IESportsRadio.com is a place for you to go. You can learn more about our awesome shows about different regions, different sports. Every show has its own page. You go to IESportsRadio.com/New York State of Sports. You can learn more about me, learn more about the show. Again, all of our shows are live on YouTube. They're now exclusively on YouTube. So be sure to check out either live shows, archive shows. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you do, feel free to say you subscribe because of New York State of Sports as we continue to expand our reach here on IE Sports Radio. That is greatly appreciated. I want to remind you, you can follow me on X at Rickinator555, or you can follow the show on X at NY State Sports IE. Going to do some live tweeting tonight for Game 2 of Pistons-Knicks, so be sure to check that out. And want to remind you as well, we are going to be going to a new time. Now, sometimes due to work purposes, these things change, so want to give you a couple updates. So we'll do this at the end of the show as well. The next full episode will be next Tuesday. So we're going to go next Tuesday just for next week. Monday, I'm actually going to be going to the Tonight Show, which we found. So that's why we'll not be live on Monday. So we'll be live on Tuesday. And starting May 9th, a couple weeks from now, we will be going to Fridays for the course of the summer. So be sure to check that out. It'll be every Friday here on the network. We already have a jam-packed lineup on Fridays. The Defining Moment came back this week with Larry B, which is great. Yinzer Report, SoCal Supreme, AZ Sports Zone. There's everything going on Friday, so I'm excited to join that group of hosts. So we'll take a quick time out. We will take a word from our sponsors, and then we will talk all things Knicks Game 1, what we took away, what are some concerns, what are some positives, and we'll look ahead to Game 2 tonight at the Garden. You're listening to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all those sports. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all of the sports. Ricky K with you. Thank you to our awesome sponsors that support this great show and this great network. Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, great snack to have during the NBA playoffs. Sure, check that out. Getting Vital Apparel, great gym wear, of course, supporting a great cause and mental health research. Seal the Deal Wax Seals for all those weddings and special events. Of course, maybe they don't happen while you're watching a playoff game, but if it does, sure, try to monitor those screens closely. And of course, you can follow us again, X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. Remember, subscribe to YouTube. And if you do subscribe to the channel, we greatly appreciate it. Be sure that you say you subscribe because of New York State Sports. Feel free, if you're listening live today, to join our channel and check it out. We have a couple people in the chat today. Taryn, thank you for hopping on. Taryn, of course, is the great person behind the glass, the proverbial person behind the glass, doing some great job over there. So thank you, Taryn. Ralph is in the house. He was at the Met game Friday. There's an October feeling about this team. We're going to talk about it later on in the show, but the Mets had a lot of sellouts this week at Citi Field in their 4-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals, so definitely some good vibes there. Dashmaster on Twitch. Again, if you're on Twitch, also comment as well. Thank you for joining in. Larry B in the house on spring break. Glad to have him aboard for the show today. We don't usually get that great support because of his busy schedule as a teacher. So check that out. And T5 the Great said he hopes the Giants do Hard Knocks again. Watching the train wreck was hilarious. Joe Shane should have been fired. Have a great show. And we'll get into the Giants later and why that's a crazy mess. But let's actually talk about some good stuff. The Knicks defeating the Pistons in game 1 on Saturday, 123-112. They take a 1-game-to-none lead in the series. Of course, game 2 comes up tonight, 7:30 Eastern. You can catch it on TNT nationally or on MSG if you're in the New York area. I think Mike Breen's on the call for that, so pick what you watch accordingly. And this game was weird. It was back and forth in the first half. Knicks had a 2-point lead going into the break, and the Pistons won an absolute tear in the third quarter, outscored the Knicks 36-26. Took an 8-point lead midway through the fourth. And then the Knicks just got going, and they did not stop. And I think there are a couple of people that were the catalysts for this 21-0 run, which if the Knicks are going to play defense like that, this series is going to be short. That was one of the big Knicks teams. Is we know that they have a good offense. That's one of the things that's unprecedented by what this team has done all season long. The problem for the Knicks has been defense. Problem has been when you look at this team from a defensive perspective, it's consistency on that end, which they haven't had all year round. But you look at this group, and I think Cam Payne has been a major difference off the bench. We look at this rotation, the Knicks haven't had a significant bench rotation going back to the last year. Remember Cam Payne against the Knicks last year against the Sixers making some big shots and some big moments to keep Philly in the series. Well, he did that for the Knicks this time around. 15 minutes of play. He went 5 of 7 from the floor, 3 threes, 14 points, including the bulk of those in the fourth quarter when the Knicks needed some big shots. And he was firing from all cylinders from three because Knicks couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from 3-point range in the first 3 quarters. He was a key. Jalen Brunson does his thing, 34 points, 8 assists in this one. And with Brunson's going, they're hard to stop. Now, it looked like Brunson kind of retweaked the ankle a little bit in the first half. He ended up having to change sneakers, which was interesting. Don't normally get that. But whatever helps the great Jalen Brunson get to the paint, get to the free throw line, that's a big thing for him. He went 12 of 27, including a pair of threes. OG Anunoby was fantastic. And you look at his performance in game 1, he had 23 points, 7 rebounds. And ever since the Brunson injury, he has stepped up his game offensively. But the big thing that OG did was guarding Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham did have 21 points, but he did it with 21 shots. He was 8 for 21, only hit 1 3-pointer, and that was a bank shot at the end of the game. But he had 12 assists. And I think if you're the Knicks, it's okay if Cade Cunningham has 12 assists. If Cade Cunningham is going to be the distributor, you would rather him be the guy passing the ball. And we talked about this with Christian from Gritsville, USA last week. If Cade is dishing it and the other guys are missing shots, that's fine. Like Tobias Harris had 25 points. He's not going to have 25 points every night in this series. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 19. Is Tim Hardaway Jr. going to have 19 at every point in the series? Maybe not. And the Pistons hit their threes. They were 15 for 32. Malik Beasley had 6 of them. We said the magic number for the Pistons was around 15 threes. They did actually hit that number, although a lot of those came late in garbage time. But nevertheless, they got to that number. But OG's defense on Cunningham is a big thing because he's going to take their best player away and kind of make them have other players do the job. And if they do, that's great. I think if you're the Knicks, if those guys beat you, it's more forgivable than Cade Cunningham does that. And Cade Cunningham can be a star in this series. We said last week he could be what Tyrese Maxey was a year ago. I would not be shocked by that. And then you have Karl Anthony Towns. Knick playoff debut, all the pressure in the world on him, and Mikal Bridges, although Bridges was not good. He was not the impact player you'd want him to be. Hopefully, throughout the series, you get a Mikal Bridges game where he kind of takes over the show. But you look at what Cat did. 23 points, 11 boards, and he not just a 23 and 11, he was 10 of 14 shooting. Very efficient game. Only took 3 3-pointers, but that's okay. If Cat's going to dominate the paint, and what you saw in this game, when the Knicks would go to that Cat Mitchell-Robinson duo down low, Robinson had 6 points and 6 boards in 18 minutes. Pistons do not have the size advantage to stop them down low and do the pick and roll game. And there's one thing if you want to take a look at going into tonight is the injury to Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart is questionable with knee inflammation. He played just 19 minutes in game 1, had 2 points, 5 rebounds. If Stewart can't go, then the Pistons are stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's up to Jalen Duren, who got into foul trouble, to be the main defender down low. He had four fouls. Ausar Thompson had 5 fouls. He got into foul trouble in this one. The Pistons just do not have the depth in the paint to withstand foul trouble. And if the refs are going to start calling these games tight and calling the whistles, because we said that, the Pistons are a physical team. The Pistons want there to be aggressiveness. Not that the Knicks don't, but the Pistons, I think, are the more aggressive out of the two. If there are going to be fouls in this game, advantage Knicks. And the one thing the Knicks did very well, I think they could do a little bit better, actually. They forced 21 turnovers. Now, they only got 17 points on those turnovers, as opposed to the Knicks only turned it over 11 times, but Detroit got 25 points. So if the Knicks can just take advantage of those opportunities, they're going to be in great shape because we talk about paint points. Pistons dominated paint points the last time in the regular season. The Knicks had 62 paint points in game 1. 62. So they dominated the paint. They were 15 to 17 from the free throw line. Pistons had more free throws, but it was pretty close. But the Knicks are going to shoot 53% from the floor. They could just hit a couple more threes. They're going to be in good shape. And then the Pistons did something crazy. Ausar Thompson was asked yesterday during the media availability, what are the challenges of guarding Jalen Brunson? He said none. You don't tell me that Jalen probably heard that and probably has a little bulletin board material for tonight? Possibly. Josh Hart even said earlier today that it's easier to box me out for the 46 minute. It's been out for the last 2. There's a Knicks team that knows how to win. It's experienced. It was a Piston team on Saturday that looked absolutely shell-shocked. The second the Knicks went on a run, the Pistons did not know how to recover. Did not know how to slow the game down. And it did not help that J.B. Bickerstaff only had 1 timeout left midway through the fourth quarter. Because once the Knicks got the lead, the Pistons had to take a timeout because they had to slow the Garden down because they couldn't stop the game for a moment. The Garden just got louder and louder and louder and louder. And that's the home court advantage the Garden has. Knicks are 10-3 at the Garden in the last couple of playoffs. Because when this city gets behind the Knicks, it's hard to beat. And that's why when Christian last week was on the show and said Pistons in 7, I was like, you expect the Pistons to come into New York and win game 7 in that building? Doesn't happen. Pistons got to win this series in 6. And to me, tonight's the crucial game. If the Knicks win this game and go 2-0, I don't see, barring injury, that the Pistons can win 4 out of 5. I know they beat the Knicks 3 out of 4 in the regular season, but we talked about a lot of those matchups. Cat didn't play one of them. OG and Hart didn't play in one of them. This is as complete a Knicks team as they've had all year long. And you look at the way they're winning games and winning they did in game one, you can look at, hey, they won a game and Landry Shamet gave them nothing off the bench. Miles McBride didn't score a point and did not look right in 15 minutes. You tell me Deuce McBride's going to do that every game? I don't think so. As I said, Bridges could have a game. He had only 8 points. Maybe he has a game that he goes off. Josh Hart, 13, 7, and 6. Josh Hart usually is due for a triple-double in one of these games at some point. So that wouldn't shock me if that happened. I just think the Knicks right now are too complete to lose this series. Now, if they play Cleveland and they play Boston, who both won game one, they haven't beaten those teams all year long. I can't say they're going to beat those teams. It would be really unrealistic, and you're not expecting that from me on this show. But right now, I think you trust Tom Thibodeau over JB Bickerstaff. You trust this Knicks supporting cast over the Pistons supporting cast because they're going to need Hardaway to steal a game. They're going to need Harris to steal a game. They're going to need Beasley to steal a game. I thought Schroeder was okay. But at the same time, I don't really know what's going to happen for this team the rest of the way. We're going to see, because I think that was one of the more compelling games in terms of game ones. We didn't have a lot of close games. I know the Nuggets beat the Clippers in overtime, and Boston Orlando was close for a little bit. Golden State beat Houston last night. But there wasn't a lot of close series. I think this could be a close series in terms of competitive games. I just think the Knicks are going to win this series. And to me, I would be shocked if they did not. Larry, of course, is not happy that the Knicks are winning these games, but Jen B is here. Jen, thank you for hopping on. Of course, we're going to get into your Cleveland team a little bit later because the Yankees are making a return visit to Cleveland this week. So looking forward to your conversation on that. And JB Bickerstaff doesn't know how to beat the Knicks in the playoffs. We did bring that up on the show last week. The fact that Bickerstaff coached against the Knicks a couple of years ago and the Knicks won that series in 5. That doesn't, again, these are different teams, different identities, but that does play a factor, I think, in the coaching decisions between Thibodeau and Bickerstaff. If you're looking at who is the better coach in the series, I think it would be Tibbs. We do have some breaking news that we'll dive into a little bit more later, but North Carolina transfer Ian Jackson has committed to St. John's. We'll dive into St. John's a little bit later, but Rick Pitino lands the former North Carolina player they tried to get 2 years ago, a New York City native, and that's their third big acquisition in the transfer portal. So we will dive into that a little bit later, but that just came across the wire over the last 5-10 minutes. Figured I would introduce that here. So we're going to take a quick timeout. We will come back. We will talk NFL draft. What's the latest around the Giants? What's the latest around the Jets? And we will do a nice 3-round mock draft for both these teams. I got the mock draft ready to go, so we will dive into that. And Aaron Rodgers says more crazy things, but the Jets should get credit for actually not saying anything at all. Why is that? I will dive into that next here on New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on The Defining Moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, I've got the show for you. I'm Jen B, host of the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You want football? I've got the Browns, the Buckeyes, the Eagles, the Purple Raiders, and more for you. You want basketball? I've got the Cavs and the Charge for you. You want hockey? I've got the Blue Jackets and the Monsters for you. You want football, aka soccer? I've got the Crew and the Crunch for you. You want volleyball? I'm going to unleash the fury for you. You want more Cleveland and Columbus sports? I've got them all for you, from the majors to the minors to the college rinks. Catch me, Jen B, every week on the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
And welcome back to New York State of Sports and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all this sports. Ricky K here with you. We just finished talking about Game 1 for the Knicks. Game 3 of the Knicks will be on Thursday, the same time as the NFL Draft out in Green Bay. We had the same, not problem, but fun conundrum last year where we had Game 3 of the Knicks and the NFL Draft on the same day. We get it this year again. And the NFL Draft is always a fun time, especially when you have two teams here that are really bad and picking in the top 10, because there's all this intrigue and all this excitement over top prospects and control of where the draft is. And want to shout out Larry B, Mike Pat, Adam Karnick, and Tara Rodriguez. Great job on the 3 and Out mock draft show on Saturday. Be sure to check that out if you get the chance to. It's a lot of fun. Definitely very informative for whichever team you are rooting for. So we'll talk Giants, we'll talk Jets, and then we will do our 3-round mock draft. No trades, no nothing. We're just going to dive into where these teams stand because it's really tough to pick trades. But interesting intel this morning from Adam Schefter over on ESPN. So he dove into a couple of big topics as we're a few days away from the draft and talked about, of course, I think the most talked about player going into this draft, and that is Shedeur Sanders. And he said the Giants have done the most work of any team on Sanders. One GM told him that Joe Schoen has basically lived in Boulder, Colorado. The Giants watched all of his games, workouts, had him in for a private workout last week, although we'll get into a little bit later, that was not uncommon as much as we would have liked it to be. More uncommon and more of a storyline. I don't think it was as most people expected. Nevertheless, they were there. They talked to him at the combine. They've done all these different things. And the one interesting thing, the director of recruiting at Colorado is the sister of Darius Slayton. So now that kind of explains why Darius Slayton had that tweet a couple weeks ago where there was an NFL draft guy that commented on Shedeur constantly patting the ball when he throws or before he goes to throw. Did defend Shedeur. Now you could say defending Shedeur because how close he is with Shedeur Sanders. I think that also plays in Sanders' favor. And I've said from day one that I think the Giants should draft him at 3. Reason being, is it worth trading draft capital to move up if you can just take the quarterback? Like, to me, that is the interesting thing. And Schefter also had that there are a lot of people in that Giants that front office that are torn on whether to take Sanders or not. There's no united decision on what to do because that's where this system has been. The fact that you have a GM and a head coach both on the hot seat. Normally, if you have a more stable coach and GM situation, you are going to take the quarterback. But you don't. But the question is, does John Mara want Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston as the quarterbacks? After saying from the end of last year, they need a franchise guy at quarterback. They need the future of this franchise. The future isn't Russell Wilson, and the future isn't Jameis Winston. The problem is the future might not be Joe Schoen and might not be Ryan Dable. So do you want a quarterback that comes in, learns from Dable, and then maybe next year learns from somebody else? That's kind of the wild card in all this discussion because you don't know really where that avenue is going to. There are a couple of teams they could trade with that maybe the price won't be too high. Todd McShay had this on New York with John Jastrzemski last week. The Falcons and the Vikings are the big pivot points. Falcons pick at 15. Vikings pick at 24. What helps the Giants is neither of those teams have many picks. I think the Falcons have like 5 picks. The Vikings have like 4 picks. So you might get away with trading a mid-round pick, maybe a second or a third, and might not have to give up as much draft capital to go from 34 to 15 or 34 to 24, as opposed to going from 34 to 8, let's say with Carolina, to try to get ahead of the Saints, or 34 to 21 with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh might need a quarterback. So there's a lot of draft things, and it's what Joe Shane and that front office and the Jets front office is doing over the next 72 hours. They're playing out all the scenarios that are possible in plan A's, plan B's, plan C's, what are our trade options, things like that. So that is interesting. Now, I mentioned the Giants also worked out other quarterbacks. They worked out Jalen Milroe privately this week, and they worked out Tyler Shuck from Louisville this week. Went out to Alabama, went out to Louisville, did all those private workouts. Joe Shane mentioned last week in his pre-draft press conference, that's not as uncommon because you had the pro days so late. You want to get those private workouts in after the fact. The top 30 visits had ended. So it's not, the story was, oh my gosh, the Giants are working out Shedeur. They definitely want to take him at 3. I think there are some in that room that want to take him at 3. I know I want to take him at 3. But I'm not upset if they take Travis Hunter if Cleveland doesn't take him or take Abdul Carter. Because to me, when you look at Abdul Carter, without the foot issues, best pass rusher in this draft. The Giants made the mistake years ago of not taking Micah Parsons when they should have. And it's kind of a redo on that. And Carter, probably a top 2 athlete in this draft. You then have the decision if you want to put the 5th-year option on Kayvon Thibodeau, which would be May 2nd's the deadline for that, or you trade him. But the Giants would have one of the best pass rushes in the league if they get him when you consider Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and then you throw Carter into the mix. I think he would thrive in that kind of environment. It would give the Giants that edge rusher when a lot of we look back to their championship teams with Strahan, OC, Tuck. They thrived on pass rush. They could use that. But again, you have to find a way to get the quarterback. And you're looking at New Orleans. You're looking at Pittsburgh. You're looking at Jen's Cleveland Browns as a team that, remember, picks ahead of them in the Giants in the 2nd round. You have to worry if Cleveland's going to take the guy you want or if Cleveland's going to trade up. So if you want Shedeur that bad, to me, you just take him. You take him because if you don't take him and someone else does and he does well, you have egg on your face. Because to me, I think he thrives the most. I know teams are concerned, and Adam Schefter had this as well. Teams are concerned that he's going backwards. And what he means by that is normally when you go from high school to college, you're not really coached by a family member anymore, or it's unfamiliar surroundings and you kind of develop that way. Shedeur now is going from being coached by his father to now not being coached by Dion. And then you have teams worrying that Dion could be the coach if that doesn't work out at some point in the NFL. I don't think you worry about that. I don't think John Mara right now is looking at Deion Sanders as head coach. I think, to me, what I like about Sanders is he's been around pro football his whole life, and he can handle New York, I think, better than any quarterback can in this draft because he's got the confidence. He's got the accuracy. He knows how to change cultures. Look at Jackson State. Look at Colorado. Shedeur kind of changed the perception of those programs. And I think at the same time, you go to that quarterback room and you have Jameis Winston, who's been a top pick and kind of had the ups and downs of his career. You have Russell Wilson, who has been, again, ups and downs in his career and a good veteran to learn from. You can't go wrong either way. So I kind of like where the Giants are in this play, but I do think, to Larry's point, both teams find a way to screw up the draft. Giants, I think, again, they're safe picks, and I think it's not monumental screws. I don't really know, Larry, to your point, though, if the Jets can really screw up at this point. Now, they are picking at 7. They, I think, have a lot of options in play. And I think there's a lot of safe picks here. You can look at Tyler Warren, who the Jets have met with. You can look at Armand Membu, the right tackle from Missouri. Membu is one of the better players in this draft from an offensive line perspective. He did a good job in the SEC, and he fits right in on the right side, meaning like you have the Jets with Fashanu on the left and Membu on the right. You would have your future tackles in place and the stability in the offensive line. And the Jets have invested a lot of draft capital in the offensive line over the last few years. They've also drafted on the defensive line. Mason Graham was one they looked at. I know Mason Graham was a target. And Larry, you brought it up on the draft show, and I talked about it last week. I agree on Ashton Genty. If Ashton Genty's there at 7, that's a hard option to not to ignore, because you can either have Genty and Breece Hall or trade Breece Hall to get picks, or Genty's still at 7 and someone like the Bears wants to trade up and you get more draft capital that way. Maybe you get some of that back that they lost in those Devontae Adams deals and things like that. So there are many avenues the Jets have. Now, the question is, when's the right time to get a quarterback? The Jets do need one. I don't think they need one desperately like the Giants do. You're looking at that day 2, day 3, whether it's Quinn Ewers, whether it's the quarterback from North Dakota State, I think it's Cam Smith that we've talked about in the past that they've met with, Tyler Shuck, Al McCord, a lot of different quarterback names out there. I don't think they need to get one desperately, but there are options in play if they do. So let's get right into it with our 3-round Giants-Jets mock draft. We're doing this with Pro Football Network, so it's a really good job. Now, I have it loaded up here. Tennessee takes Cam Ward at 1. Cleveland takes Travis Hunter at 2. So it leaves us with the conundrum, okay, for the Giants. And again, you've got 4 picks inside the top 100. Do you go for need or do you go for the options on the board? And to me, for this sake, we're going to go Abdul Carter, 6'3", 250 pounds, best pass rusher in this draft. We're not really worried at the foot injury, so we're going to take him. To me, it just seems like the easy, safe play. Will Campbell goes to the Patriots. Will Johnson goes to the Jaguars at 5. Ted McMillan goes to the Raiders at 6. So again, we have a lot of options to play here. We have Graham, we have Genty, we have Sanders, we have Membu, we have Warren, Jalen Walker. This, I think, would be the prime spot if we did trades where the Jets should trade, because they could move down and still get one of these targets on the board. You have 4 targets in play. If you, let's say, trade with the Bears, you could get one of those 4 players easily. But I think for the sake of this argument, we are going to go tackle here. We're going, actually not tackle. We're going to go tight end. I think as much as I love the Jets investing in tackles, investing in the trenches. It's not the sexy pick, but you build through that. I think Tyler Warren is the player that can be a game changer with Justin Fields and kind of be a player to grow with and help Garrett Wilson. So we're going to go Tyler Warren for this pick, just because I think the upside is there. And now we're going to see if – so Pittsburgh in this case, if we follow this, trades up to 16. So Sanders is now off the board. So you see what I mean? You lose now those options if you don't take a player there. So that is kind of the risk you take when you don't take the quarterback and you don't make the trade. So we'll see. And then rest now, Cleveland took Jackson Dart at 33. So we go to 34. You could go Jalen Milroe. That's an option on the board. You also you can improve the offensive line. Josh Connerly Jr. is an option on the board here if you want to go that direction. But I think just because 65 is our next pick, we're going to take Jalen Milroe. I think Brian Dable in the system. But again, if that's the quarterback you want, you've got to make the effort to do that. So if Cleveland got Dart at 33 and Connor Hughes from SNY had the Giants are also very high on Jackson Dart, that would be interesting to monitor. Jets at 42. Now, I think corner could be in play here. We know Aaron Glenn loves his corners. And the name to watch here, I'm going to go with Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. Trey Amos is 6 feet, 195 pounds, large catch radius. Great job in terms of ball skills, and great in coverage. Remember, they lost out on DJ Reed to free agency, so they need another guy with sauce, who Darren Muji said today they're going to pick up the fifth-year option. So we're going to go Trey Amos at 42. We've already addressed offense in terms of wide receiver and tight end, so we're going to go here with a corner and Trey Amos. So I think that's going to be the play. And Jen says she's already going to give back Jackson Dart. Dart to me is intriguing in this draft. I'm not as high on him as others seem to. Dan Orlovsky, I think, said in ESPN today he's going to be the steal of the draft. I'm not quite there. I need to see more in a different style of offense. So let's talk again. Giants are back on the clock at 65 as we begin round 3. And you look at the Giants' needs. Josh Connerly's still there, so we kind of get lucky. We're going to take the offensive tackle from Oregon just because the Giants do need some help on the trenches. I don't think that's realistic. I think Connerly be gone. Like this draft had Ashton Genty 17 to the Bengals. I don't think that Ashton Genty is going to make it to 17. Now for the Jets, we can kind of go the tackle route because we address tight end, we address the corner position. We're going to go Emory Jones, 6'5", 315. Very good in terms of a pass blocker, and he's a guy who thrives in the run blocking game as well. So we're going to go Emory Jones, the tackle from LSU. So we're done with the Jets draft where it's Warren, Amos, and Emory Jones. And then we have, I think, one more pick coming up with the Giants at 99. I'm going to get to Jen's comment here as well. She said she'd rather take a flyer on Will Howard. To me, Will Howard, I'm not sold on as much because I think he's more of a product of the Ohio State wide receiver core than how great he is. He was good at Kansas State. I don't think he was great at Kansas State. And I just think the production from Will Howard was more Jeremiah Smith, Mecca Egbuka, like the wide receiver from Ohio State. I think he was more that kind of talent. So I think that's different. So we go to the Giants at 99 to wrap up our draft. I think we do need to get a playmaker for Jalen Milroe at some point, especially if they're going to trade Jalen Hyatt. The best options are Savion Williams from TCU, Ty Felton from Maryland. We've already addressed edge rushers, so we don't really have to go there. Will Howard is still on the board here if we did want to go that direction. Corner. The Giants, I think, could use some help at corner, especially with Deontay Banks. So we're going to go Zy Alexander out of LSU. We're going to stick with the defense portion for the Giants. So we're going to go Zy Alexander. So we got some defense help in this draft. So when we look at the 3 rounds, Jets, we got Tyler Warren, Trey Amos, Emory Jones. Giants, we get Abdul Carter, Jalen Milroe, Josh Cornerly, and Zy Alexander. So not bad, I think, overall. But, again, different mock drafts will give you different things. But very quickly, let's get to the Jets. And enough is enough with Aaron Rodgers. I'm sick of talking about Aaron Rodgers. You're sick of me talking about Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show last week, and he talks about his meeting with the Jets front office, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji. Talk about how he flew all the way out to New York on his own dime just to be told he wasn't going to be a Jet anymore. And I give Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn a lot of credit for not addressing the situation. Darren Muji said today at his pre-draft conference, as much as he respects the question, he's not talking about it. I get Aaron Rodgers felt disrespected. I think the Jets could have handled it a little bit better in terms of maybe don't have the guy fly out if you're just going to tell him that he's not the answer. Maybe just give him a phone call, maybe get on a Zoom or something and just be like, listen, we're not going this direction, to fly out in there and ask him, well, what's the message you want out there? But I think Aaron Rodgers was a little angry that his ego got hurt. I think Aaron Rodgers is a little angry that right now he's not the guy everybody wants anymore. He's not the same player. And that the Jets, clearly, if Woody Johnson told Aaron Glenn that Aaron Rodgers had to come back, Aaron Glenn wasn't going to be the coach. This is clear, and you can make the case whether this is wrong or not, that this is Aaron Glenn's show. And the Jets are trying to change the perception of what's around them. And the only way they're going to do that is by winning football games. It's not going to be about messages in the media. It's not about leaks. It's not about anything like that. It's not about having to respond to stuff like this. It's about changing a culture on the field, but also starting it off the field. And to me, when you look at Aaron Glenn, he's a no-nonsense kind of guy. Was that as a player? Was that as the coach for the Lions? And it's clear right now, Aaron Rodgers is not a guy people want. If he was, he'd be a Steeler by now. Personally, I think he wants to be a Viking. And it's weird to me that he wants to be a Viking because it's the same path Brett Favre took. Does he want to be like Brett Favre? the retirement, unretirement, all that stuff. No. And to me, when you look at this whole situation, and I think he's a guy that wants everybody to cater to him. And now he's finally in a place where nobody's going to cater to him. And he was shocked and hurt by that. Sorry, Aaron. The only thing I think the Jets did wrong here was not communicating through, was making him fly all the way out there. That's the only thing I think they did wrong in this occasion. Other than that, we said even back in November, December, we all knew Aaron Rodgers' time with the Jets was coming to an end. This era flamed out. I'm sure Aaron wished it went better. Every Jet fans wish it went better. Wish he wasn't hurt the first year he was here. But those things change, and the Jets have moved on. They've picked a different direction. We'll see where they go. We'll see who ends up being right or wrong. But the Jets glad that Woody, Aaron Glenn, and Darren Muji are not going to try to battle him with words in the media and publicly. They did right or wrong thing. You make the judge. But for right now, at least the Jets have kept their mouth shut. And I give them credit for that. So we'll take another timeout. We'll talk NHL after the break. Rangers try to one-up the Devils. Devils are in the playoffs, and the Rangers decide 2 days after the season, let's fire the coach. So much to dive into, and we'll talk all about that next. You're listening to New York State Sports and Sports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. We'll talk NHL playoffs and Rangers head coaching search after the break.
Are you a fan of Minnesota sports? Do you love the Vikings and hate the Packers? Are you a fan of the Timberwolves, Twins, Wild, Lynx, St. Paul Saints? Here on the Bold North Breakdown, we'll talk about all of those professional teams as well as all the college teams in the area. That's your basketball teams, football, hockey, volleyball, men's and women's sports alike. We talk about them all. Here on the Bold North Breakdown. Join me, your host, Glenn Ritter, every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central to discuss all that is happening in the Minnesota sports scene. Here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
And welcome back to New York State Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We move on from the NFL to the NHL. And of course, normally we would lead with the Devils in the postseason, but the Rangers had to one-up everybody and make a coaching move. Peter Laviolette didn't even get the holiday. 2 days after the season ends, Sam Rosen's last game, which was emotional. The Rangers got a 4-0 win against the Lightning. Wish the Rangers played like that all year long, but they did not. They make the move to fire both Peter Laviolette and assistant coach Phil Housley. And it's not shocking. Peter Laviolette was going to be the scapegoat for this year. This year is an epic failure for the Rangers in a year where the East, it was at least easy as ever to make the playoffs, and they couldn't even do that from a team that won the President's Trophy and got to the conference final a year ago. Very embarrassing. Chris Drury gets to now pick a third coach in 4 years. How does any GM get a chance to pick 3 coaches in 4 years? You clearly couldn't make the right pick the first time. You clearly didn't make the right pick the second time. So now you're going to get a third shot in this short of a time span? I really don't understand that. You had a repeating article in the New York Post where Chris Drury does like an 11-minute Zoom, and then writers still have questions, and he ends the Zoom all the time. How's that professional? But again, who knows? Chris Drury made some comments over the weekend saying, leading into the season, given the success we had the last few years, we had high expectations. Quite simply, we fell short across the board. Nobody here takes it lightly. We know our fans are frustrated and deserve a better season than this. It starts with me. I need to do a better job and give the staff and players the opportunity to succeed. I mean, Chris Drury failed miserably this year. And we won't go chapter and verse with everything like we've had over the last few weeks, but between the Barclay Goodrow stuff, between Jacob Trouba's trade, trying to get him out, the trade memo involving Chris Kreider, just everything went wrong, just lack of communication. Even praised Peter Laviolette for his communication, but clearly there wasn't enough communication involved when Calvin DeHaan's mad about not playing, Zach Jones is mad about not playing, Capo Caco was mad about not playing. There clearly was not that connection there between player, coach, whatever it is. And the core is going to get broken up, whether people like it or not. It just has to. There has to be a different vibe around the Rangers. And it's about really trying to figure out what to do with these veterans. Mika Zibanejad didn't sound like a guy this week that's going to waive that no movement clause to get out of New York. You look at Chris Kreider, and that's going to be the one that a lot of people thought that Thursday was Chris Kreider's last game as a Ranger. Today was exit day for the Rangers. Chris Kreider pointed out today that he had a back problem the first half of the year, had illness in his inner ear, had vertigo around late December, early January. And then just as he was getting back from Four Nations, he hurt his hand. So everything went wrong for Chris Kreider this year. Does that mean now you have to look to move in a different direction? And Kreider was asked today, does he want to be a Ranger? And he said, this is home for me. This is the organization that gave me an opportunity to live out my dream. So obviously this is where I want to be. And this is the group that I want to help in whatever fashion. Notice he said whatever fashion. The group he's with now is not going to be the group they bring back next year. It can't be. Those veterans did not do well. They have to balance youth with vets to have any chance to really turn this thing around, regardless of who the coach is. Now, when you look at coach options for the Rangers, it could go in a lot of different ways. They could go with experience. Again, they've tried experience the last couple of times with Gerard Gallant and Peter Laviolette. If they do go experience, obviously the name everybody wants, and if Ralph's here can maybe comment on if he's actually going to be available, is Mike Sullivan from the Penguins. That seems like it's been the Rangers' choice for a while. Penguins haven't been willing to let him go. Sullivan hasn't been looking to go. But I think in a dream world, that's the guy they would want, would be Mike Sullivan. The other option, which is intriguing, is John Tortorella. I think the Rangers need a no-nonsense coach. They need a guy that's not going to put up with the players. They need a player that's going to set standards, set discipline, set all those things. Because it seemed like the players were in the show with the Rangers and it didn't work. You have to kind of go the opposite style. I think John Tortorella would be a very intriguing coach to bring in. He just got, of course, he's no longer the coach of the Flyers, so he's available. Does Jim Dolan want to make that call? We'll see. That's an option. Does Rick Tocchet let go from Vancouver? Rick Tocchet would be a name. Everyone's talked about Joe Quenneville, who, of course, used to be the coach of the Blackhawks. Would that be somebody the Rangers look to bring in as a Flyer? We'll see. But there are intriguing first-time candidates. Denver University coach David Carl. I mean, the Rangers went the college coach route with David Quinn, but David Carl has done, I think, a really good job in also getting players to the NHL. Denver's built up a great program out west. That would be one to bring in. You look at assistants. Guys, like you could look at keeping it in-house and hiring Michael Pekka, which I don't think they will do, but apparently they will be considered for the head coaching vacancy. But if you're going outside the organization, There's a couple I like. Jay Leach is one. Jay Leach is an assistant in Boston, was also the assistant under Mike Sullivan. So if you're looking, they can't get Sullivan, you kind of want the alternative. Jay Leach would be someone I would look to. The other one is Jeff Halpern. Jeff Halpern has been under John Cooper for a while in Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay, to me, has been the standard for really consistency and winning. Even though the Lightning haven't won a cup every year, they're usually around the cup more often than not. And I think you want stability. Jeff Halpern's been around a lot of stability. I think that would be another interesting one to bring in. I don't have a set requirement on what I'm looking for from a coach. I don't. I don't think experience is going to matter because we clearly see experience didn't matter the last time. They brought in Peter Laviolette because he was a guy that turned teams around and would get to Stanley Cups. And that didn't happen. To me, it's not about who they hire as the coach. It's about the shakeup to the core and how it changes. That's going to determine stuff. I'm looking more at the front office because to me, the coach is going to be the scapegoat regardless. They could change coaches like I said last week. They change coaches the way people change underwear half the time. It does not happen this way. And to me, you're looking at the Rangers. They need a shakeup in the drastic way, and we'll see how they shake it up. And Jenny even said it here. She was going to say it too. Torts is available. I don't know how active Gene Dolan's going to be. It sounds like Dolan's going to be very active in the exit meetings, but that could be a blessing and a curse because Dolan was that with the Knicks, but people think that the meddling that Dolan used to do with the Knicks helped the Rangers kind of get better off the scene. Now, maybe if Dolan meddles with the Rangers, it's not going to help as much. We'll see if that necessarily clicks for them, but to me, we'll keep track on who they interview, but the player movement, I think, is more intriguing than who the coach is. Because I'm not going to look at who they hire and say, yes, that's the coach that leads them to a Stanley Cup. Not the case. Moving to actual teams that matter. The Devils had game one against Carolina yesterday, and right out of the gate, it was over. Jalen Chatfield scored 2 minutes into the first period. Devils were in it for a little bit. We're down 1-0 after one, but then Logan Stankoven, who give Neil from Carolina Sports Update credit. If you missed our preview show from Friday, go back here on YouTube. Neil did a fantastic job. Hopefully we'll do another show with him during this series. He brought up Logan Stankoven as a name to watch. Stankoven had 2 goals in the second period, including a power play goal midway through. Devils got 1 goal back from Nico Hischier late in the second to make it 3-1, but it was not enough. Andrei Svechnikov gets an empty netter in the third, and Carolina wins 4-1. And the interesting thing to look at and the concerning thing to look at in this one is shots on goal. Carolina outshot the Devils 45-24. They had 38 shots after 2 periods. The Devils had 13. This is a Carolina team that led the league in shots per game. It was a team that kind of thrived its way on getting pucks in the net, getting opportunities. The Devils have to be more aggressive on the offensive end. They've got to get the puck to the net. If they can't do that, they're not gonna last long in this series. I don't think they're gonna win this series anyway. And I give Nico Hischier credit for getting a goal, but you got outshot 17-5 in the first, 21-8 in the second. You're not gonna win. We saw the Islanders struggle with that last year in the first round. Carolina would just keep peppering shots over and over and over and over. And remember, they get 45 shots. Sebastian Aho didn't score, and Seth Jarvis didn't score. Those are their 2 best players. And Carolina still scored 4 goals. So if you were counting like me that that Markstrom was going to steal a game in this series, and I give him credit for having 41 saves, could have easily been 5, could have been 6-1, 7-1, the way you get shots like that. So you give him some credit for that. But at some point, the Devils have to reciprocate on the offensive end, and they just did not do that against Frederick Anderson in net, who was 23 for 24 in terms of saves. Game 2, Tuesday, 6 Eastern, ESPN, and then Game 3 back at Prudential Center. It'll be Friday night, 8:30 puck drop on TBS. And I think the issue for the Devils also is on defense. They had Brendan Dillon get hurt in this game. Sounds like it was just precautionary reasons. You also had Cody Glass get hurt in the series at the forward position. We'll see what happens with him. But the Devils were already down a bunch of defensemen yesterday. They did get Dougie Hamilton back, which is great. Luke Hughes is going to be one to watch as well. But the Devils are going to have to be better at getting the puck out of the zone It's the only shot they have, I think, to get through this series, but we'll see how that goes. Let's do some baseball while we're here. We'll save the other stuff for our grab bag segment after our final segment. So we'll talk some baseball here as well. Let's get into the Mets, who did a really good job over the weekend. I was saying right when Ralph commented at the beginning of the show about the vibe at Citi Field. The vibe at Citi Field was fantastic. My mother and my brother went over the weekend to the game against St. Louis. Francisco Lindor had the walk-off. The Mets swept the Cardinals in a 4-game series for the first time since 1986. Now, the Cardinals aren't any good, but you give the Mets credit, especially after they had lost the series to the Twins. Twins aren't any good. Mets have finally lost the series, and they recover very nicely to take all 4 games. Francisco Lindor had the walk-off on Friday. First one as a Met. Good vibes there going for him. He's been swinging a hot bat lately. I think it's 7 for his last 18. You had Juan Soto hit a couple of home runs this week. He drove in 3 yesterday. He's starting to find his form at the right time. Brandon Nimmo had a go-ahead hit yesterday to break a 3-3 tie. And I think you look at this Met rotation, Met ERA is still one of the better ones in baseball. Number 2, 3 weeks through the year. Clay Holmes went 6 innings yesterday, 1 run, 4 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 6. A very strong performance from Holmes. Kodai Senga was again a strong outing on Friday. 5 2/3, a 3-hit ball. He's got a .79 ERA to begin the year. I don't think he's been as dominant, but I think he's also done a good job of limiting damage and getting out of jams when needed to be. You go to Friday's game. David Peterson gets into the 6th inning, strikes out 9, goes 5 1/3. This Met bullpen continues to be strong. Ryan Stanek closed the game yesterday. Jose Buto has pitched well. Brazaban has been, I think, much better than people anticipated. It's a deep bullpen. And the Mets, to me, are an interesting team to monitor. They're 15-7. It's one of their better starts that they've had. And again, you don't look at standings, but considering I don't look at standings till a month from now, but to win 15 of your first 22, I mean, definitely a good sign in the right direction. And you're going to get more playoff intensity this week as the Mets will host the Philadelphia Phillies for 3 games. Phillies right now are 13-9, so this is a good test early. And some really intriguing pitch-up matchups. It starts tonight. Aaron Nola against Tyler McGill. Aaron Nola has been awful this year. 0-4 with a 6.65 ERA. You have guys like Soto and Alonso who do great against Nola historically. We'll see if that continues into this week. Christopher Sanchez against Griffin Canning tomorrow. Kind of like the way Canning has pitched, actually. He has been a bright spot in the 5 slot in this rotation. And then Wednesday afternoon, Zach Wheeler goes to Citi Field. He will take on Peterson. So that's, I think, a really fun series to have. The Mets will then go out to the nation's capital to play the Nationals for a 4-game set Friday through Monday. In fact, that Monday game, actually, no, that's true. Monday will be a 4 o'clock first pitch next Monday. So 2 NLE series coming up for the Mets. I think they're in a good position right now. Again, it's very early in the season, but considering the offense is starting to get going and the pitching is still there, they can go on a run and win a lot of games and really get some separation early on from the Phillies, especially considering the Braves, they're having their own struggles, even though they're starting to get better. They swept the Twins, but again, the Twins aren't any good, and the Braves have their own hustling issues with a former Met prospect in Jared Kelenic that Brian Snitker did not handle well over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Yankees, they take 3 out of 4 from the Rays at Steinbrenner Field, and it was just very weird watching this series in that you're watching the Yankees be the road team in a spring training facility that's their home. A lot of crazy stuff, a lot of different sun angles, it definitely was a different experience watching these games. The minor league parks don't help, especially yesterday. Aaron Judge hits the ball. It's clearly a home run, but because the foul pole is so short, they call it foul for some strange reason. Aaron Boone gets thrown out of the game. Just a lot of crazy stuff. Yankees had a really good week, though. They won 6 out of 7. They swept the Royals. A lot of close games. They found ways to win those games. You look at hitting 4 home runs off Seth Lugo on Monday, something they don't usually do. Seth Lugo doesn't usually give up home runs. You go to Tuesday, they win the game 4-2. Jason Dominguez, the bases clearing double at the 6th. That was a big moment for him against a lefty. And then you go to Thursday, Wednesday. Carlos Carrasco. Well, Clark Schmidt made his debut, pitched well, 5 2/3, 3 hits. Carrasco pitched well on Monday last week. Fernando Cruz got a 6-down save, and Judge got the game-winning home run against Schreiber in the 7th in that game. Good things in the right direction. Max Fried has been everything as advertised. You can't speak enough to what Max Fried was able to do, especially yesterday. Yankees needed their ace to go deep. They had the bullpen get taxed a ton in this series against Tampa, where Will Warren couldn't get out of the second inning on Friday. Was it Friday or Thursday? It was Thursday. Couldn't get out of the second inning on Thursday. Carlos Carrasco only goes 4 innings on Saturday. Used a ton of the bullpen. Played an extra inning game Saturday, which did not help. But Max Fried was fantastic. 7 2/3 scoreless innings, 2 hits. He walked 2, struck out 2. His earlier start this week against the Royals did give a pair of runs early, but was able to pitch into the 7th inning, which was a good sign. And you look at Fried's numbers early. He's 4-0, a 1.42 ERA. The Yankees are undefeated in the games he's pitched right now. They're 5-0, 30 strikeouts, 31 2/3 innings, and a whip of just over 1. That's a guy you give $218 million to. And a guy doesn't need velocity, just pitches to contact. And the Yankees defense has been much better than what it was a year ago. Jazz is making plays. Cabrera's been much better at third than anything they had last year. Goldschmidt's been good at first base. And it was kind of annoying yesterday to see the official score change the ruling from Chandler Simpson's error in the 6th from Goldschmidt to a hit in the 8th. To me, you change that on the spot. And they eventually it was the right call. I think Simpson would have got an infield single anyway. But Fried's pitching like he's got a no-hitter going, and I'm sure the adrenaline's there. And now he sees in the 8th he doesn't have it anymore. Something then wears off. And Fried hadn't gone past 98 pitches, I think, yet with the Yankees. He did 102 yesterday. So he's at least able to give them 2 outs into the 8th and did his job. But that's one that the official score has got to get right. Chandler Simpson has great speed. He was going to beat that ball no matter what. I did not like that they were necessarily kind of concerns that call wasn't changed correctly right away. Now, you look at warning signs, one being Will Warren and Carlos Carrasco already eat enough innings. Now, I give Boone credit Thursday for taking Will Warren out in the 2nd and not trying to get him 75 pitches through 2. Will Warren clearly didn't have it. He was good in his prior start before that. I thought did a good job against Kansas City, but you're going to need a little, actually not the Kansas City game, the Giants start, but they're going to need a little bit more. Carrasco was good against Kansas City. He only gave up the 1 hit, which is the Bobby Witt home run, and then struggled again. It's been 1 good, 1 bad for Carrasco. They need at least a consistent floor. That's the only way they're going to get by with this rotation. Carlos Rodon, very good on Friday. Problem was he still had 4 walks. Rodon's got to stop the walks. So that's only going to be they get better. Now, on an offensive side, there's 2 guys I think we're still looking for consistency from. Maybe 3, actually, if you think about it. Cody Bellinger yesterday went deep for just the 2nd time this year. He's battled back stuff, battled food poisoning. He's hitting 179 on the year. Now, he's played a good defense. Whenever the Yankees have asked him to in left or in center, wherever they put him, he's done a good job. They need a little bit more with the bat, especially if you're going to hit him behind Judge. I think that's the Yankees haven't found that stability in that 3 spot because you could put Jazz there, but Jazz is hitting 157. Like they need Jazz to be at a little more contact on the opposite side. He got thrown out the other day and then tweeted about it that he got thrown out, which is a dumb mistake that he made. He's got to stay off social media when that happens. And I think Anthony Volpe's one to watch too. He was 2 for 4 with a double yesterday, hitting just 213. I'm concerned that Volpe's trying too hard to hit for the long ball. I've always been concerned with that with Brett Gardner. Early on, would go back years and years ago when the short porch and they try to cater their swing to that. When I need Volpe to be a doubles hitter. I need Volpe to be the guy that's going to make contact, run around, and create havoc. The Yankees don't do that enough. Why do you think they lose these extra inning games on the road constantly? They don't know how to generate runs. And that's a problem. They've got to be able to fix that. So to me, that's a concern for the Yankees going forward. They have to utilize their speed. I think they will eventually with Volpe and Dominguez and Grisham. They're going to find different ways. Grisham, again, went deep over the weekend. He's been a great player. He, of course, though, is on paternity leave. So he will miss at least the next couple of days. The big concern is Devin Williams. And Yankees bring him in the other day, 8-4 in the 9th. He walks the 9-hitter. everything unravels. And to me, that's the problem with Devin Williams right now. And I don't know if it's from last year in Milwaukee when Pete Alonso took him deep in game 3 and he hasn't really been recovered from that. To me, it's been more when you only have 2 pitches and your changeup isn't going over for strikes. That's a concern. I'm not quite there yet to take Devin Williams out of the closer role, but the more Luke Weaver dominates and the more Devin Williams struggles, the more I'm inclined to put Luke Weaver in the 9th inning for now. Doesn't mean it's a permanent change. But for right now, when Aaron Boone says you got to build up wins, you got to bank wins now so that when you struggle later in the year, you have those wins in your back pocket. Kind of we saw with the Yankees last year. They got off to a great start. When they struggled, they still had lead in the division and still were at least not panicking. That's the kind of stuff you look for. You can't lose games like you did Saturday. That's unacceptable. To have an 8-4 lead in the 9th and to lose 10-8 in 10 innings, that can't happen. And Aaron Boone said Devin Williams has the equipment to turn it around. I said, equipment? You've got a glove and a ball. I mean, what other equipment do you need? And I know he was meaning like mental toughness and things like that. And I'm not saying Devin Williams is going to be a bust all year long. He's going to find it. But you also have to remember, not everybody's an elite closer anymore. There's no more Mariano Rivera's. Jen could speak to this if she's still here. Emmanuel Clase in Cleveland. Clase hasn't been the same guy he was in the regular season last year, going back to the playoffs. And Clase is regarded as the best closer in the league. Devin Williams is a top 3 closer in the league. Saw Giants yesterday. Ryan Walker, great player. Blows the lead in the 9th. Edwin Diaz, another good closer. He's been struggling this year a little bit in terms of velocity and command, things like that. There's no more elite closers anymore. So you kind of have to set your expectations accordingly when it comes to closers. It just doesn't help Williams that Luke Weaver's been great, even with the diminished velocity that people were concerned about. I'm not. Now the Yankees will go to Cleveland this week. It is an ALCS rematch, which should be a lot of fun. Guardians have turned it around. They got off to a really rough start. Now they played a lot of games on the road, but they're 12-9. They've beat up on the division. They went to Pittsburgh and beat the Pirates over the weekend. So you have 2 teams with really strong records going against each other. That should make it fun. Tonight, 6:10 first pitch here at East Coast. Clark Schmidt against Gavin Williams. So Yankees game 3 starter last year in the playoffs against Cleveland's game 4 starter from that series. Tuesday night's going to be a test for Will Warren against Tanner Bybee. Tanner Bybee, remember, did not look great to begin that series last year, and then game 5 looked a lot better. And then Wednesday afternoon, Carlos Rodon against Luis Ortiz. Rodon was actually, if you look back to that playoffs, his one good series was against Cleveland. His good job against those Guardians hitters. But I think the hitter to watch for Cleveland in this series is Kyle Manzardo. He's a player I think that's benefited from getting more playing time. And he's done a good job at that. Kind of with Josh Naylor now in Arizona, it's helped out. I think this is always a fun series. I think in Cleveland, there's as much as they've got that Cavs fever, I think that having the Yankees in town and Cleveland starting to find it again, you look at the Central, they're right there with the Tigers. And at least the AL teams are starting to come back to the pack. But it was an interesting stat someone brought up. The AL only has 4 teams with a positive run differential. 4 teams. The NL right now, the Mets have a plus 30, by the way. Yankees have a plus 30 as well. The National League has 9 teams with a positive run differential. The AL has 4. It speaks to the balance of power, I think, in baseball. As Jen says, Kyle Manzardo has been absolutely hot. It's hard to ignore that right now. So it should be some fun series. Yankees then will be home this week. They will take on the Blue Jays. Blue Jays right now are 12-10. They lost the series to Seattle. But Anthony Santander is starting to find it. This Blue Jay team now with Vlad having the extension. They can kind of calm things down. But after this week, the Yankees will play a lot of division games. They'll have Toronto. They'll have Baltimore. They'll have Tampa again. So we'll start to see more divisional games as we get into May. So we'll take one more timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk some soccer. We'll talk some college basketball as well and some college football news regarding Syracuse. It should be interesting. You're listening to New York State of Sports, 9 Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Our grab bag final segment coming up after the break.
How we doing, sports fans? This is Christian Harvey, your host of Gritsville, USA, your go-to show for all things Detroit and Michigan here on IE Sports Radio. Whether you're here for Gritty Lions talk, getting pumped up for the great Detroit sports renaissance, or hating on your neighbor depending on if they were green or blue, we got you covered. Whether you're in the East, West, or Central, we got you covered. Join me as we tackle through all that the great state of Michigan has to offer in the world of sports. Catch me, Christian Harvey, each week on Gritsville, USA, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all those sports. It is time for our grab bag segment. Now, for those new to the show, again, if you're new to the show, welcome. Remember to subscribe to IE Sports Radio on YouTube. And if you do, send us a comment. Say you subscribe because of New York State of Sports. The grab bag segment is where we kind of combine a bunch of the other sports into our final segment, kind of have some fun with it along the way. Taryn also contributing. See, that's why Taryn is the great one behind the glass. He always provides these awesome nuggets. Princeton men's volleyball won the EIVA regular season last week. They beat Penn State on Friday, and they will host the EIVA tournament this week. So if you're in Princeton, New Jersey, and you're looking for some sports to check out, head out to watch some volleyball. I'm a big volleyball fan myself. I was the captain in high school. Plays in volleyball. So Taryn is our key guy. Set Point does a really good job talking about everything going on in volleyball. And, of course, the Olympics in a couple of years that he's going to be, of course, did a good job at the last Olympics covering those volleyball events. Let's get into some soccer. The Red Bulls taking a tough loss. Both New York teams actually took some bad losses this week. Red Bulls losing 2-1 to DC United. João Pedro getting both goals for DC United late in the first half. Red Bulls try to counter back. Choupo-Moting gets a goal in the 57th minute, and that was not enough. Red Bulls are 3-3-3 to begin the year. 3 is a crowd. They will end April with a home game on Saturday against Montreal. That has a 4:30 kickoff. Montreal has yet to win a game this year. They are 0-3-6. Now, they last played against Orlando. They tied 0-0 last week. They lost 1-0 to Charlotte on the 12th, and then 2-1 loss to Columbus on the 5th. There's 1 goal this month in 3 games. And you're at home, don't lose this game. Don't be the one that gives Montreal their first win. But the Red Bulls, we've said this, they've got kind of an inconsistency scoring, but the inconsistency is more in the defensive half. That's kind of the concern here when you're giving up 2 goals so quick. We're going to need to see what happens from the defensive unit, especially in midfield. Guys like Alexander Hack, who picked up a yellow in this game. Tim Parker started. Omar Valencia. We'll see if they get some more stronger defense against Montreal, but not a good performance against DC United. The worst performance, I think, though, is NYCFC. We thought they had kind of turned the corner. They play a great match against Philly the week prior, and they go play New England, a team that they've beaten the last few times, and they go up to Gillette, and they get shut out 2-0. Leonardo Campagna with a goal in the 43rd minute, and then Ignatius Ganago scores in the 48th minute for New England to win 2-0. For New England now, they have won back-to-back games, and their defense has been much better. They picked up back-to-back shutouts, but New England was toward the bottom of the table. Like, New York cannot afford to lose games like that. They're 3-2-4. They've now lost 2 of the 3 games they played this month, so not really a good stretch for Pascal Jansen's club. They will next play on Saturday out in Canada. They'll take on Toronto, who's 1-4-4. They only have 7 points. New York has won the last 4 matchups against Toronto, dating back to 2023. So maybe that is going to be a good bounce-back performance for them out at BMO Field. When you look at the table, Red Bulls right now are in the 9th spot with 12 points, tied with Chicago for 8th, but only a point back of 6. So everything's kind of even in the East right now with Charlotte and Cincy with 19 points leading the table. Red Bull, NYCFC's at 11 points. They're 10th. Revolution just pulled a point behind them. Toronto, second to last. So both New York teams playing the Canada teams that are both the bottom 2 in the table. And in Red Bull's case, they're at home. Do not lose these games. We go to NWSL. Gotham FC getting a very good result this week. They were out west. They're still out west, by the way, because they're going to play Portland Thorns tomorrow. But they were taking on Angel City. And if you missed it, make sure you catch our new Saturday show, Shin Pads and Shenanigans with Jess. She does a really good job talking some soccer. It's her first show. They played a Friday night game and a 4-0 win. Gotham brought out the goals to the party. And Esther Gonzalez, she was a big story. She had 2 goals, one in the 18th minute, one in the 75th minute. They got an own goal from Angel City. And then Gesa, she scored in the 85th minute, her first goal since joining the States. So a really good win there for Gotham, who is now 2-1 on the season. And the big story in this one to me is Esther Gonzalez. She has done a really good job for this team this season. When you look at the injuries to Tierna Davidson, the injuries to Rose Lavelle, they needed somebody to step up. And Esther Gonzalez, she has done just that. She has 4 goals this season in just 5 games. You go back to last year, the 32-year-old player, she had 9 goals in 18 starts. So 13 goals in her last 23 starts. So she is a player that's really become a reliable scorer for this team. And they desperately could use some scoring. We saw Lily Rial do that a week ago. She had a beautiful goal as well. So their next game, as I said, will be Tuesday night. It is a 10:30 kickoff on CBS Sports Network against Portland, who's 1-2-2. They got 5 points. Gotham right now is at 8. They're tied for 4th with Angel City. Right now, KC, Orlando, and Washington lead the table there. So you have Gotham playing Portland on Tuesday, and then after that, they actually have 2 games this week. Portland on Tuesday, and then at Washington Saturday, 1 o'clock on CBS. Of course, Washington was the team that knocked them out in the semifinals last year, so that'll be a fun playoff rematch for them. We got Westchester out in the USL. Had a fun 4-4 tie this week. You had a chance to catch Westchester. There's a team in Brooklyn as well for the women, so that's some fun soccer if you're looking locally. The Sirens are back in action this week against the Frost, so the PWHL getting some run as well now that the Worlds are over for the women in terms of hockey. Let's get into some college basketball. And, of course, we talked some St. John's. And remember, we got the news as we were live, about 10 minutes into being live, that St. John's got one of the recruits they were looking for. Ian Jackson is going to St. John's. And right now, when you look at the St. John's transfer class, and according when you look at some of the top markets, they are number 2. They're the number 2 transfer class in the country. Now, it's a big thing because they've lost a lot of players in the portal. More than I think people expected, and we'll get into that in a minute, but let's talk about Ian Jackson first as a player. Because you look at Ian Jackson, this is a player, again, Rick Pitino tried to get in his first year. He was a top 10 player in high school, averaged about 12 points a game last year. More of a bench player for North Carolina. I think now he'll get a chance to start for St. John's, or at least be like the 6th, 7th guy off the bench. He's going to get some run. He's a player that has played well in some big games especially against tough competition. Like look at last year, ESPN had a number that from late December till mid-January, he was averaging 20. He had 20.6 times, averaged 22 points per game in the time. So there's a player I think maybe that can fit more in what Rick Pitino is trying to find. They still could use a point guard, but you look at the transfers they've added. Look at Jackson. You look at Sinan from Arizona State, Bryce Hopkins from Providence, Sellers they got over the weekend from Stanford, who could really shoot the three. They have added 4 very talented players. They still don't need more, and they need a point guard. Reason they need a point guard is not shocking, but somewhat surprising. Simeon Wilcher entered the transfer portal this weekend. I was a little disappointed he did. Now, I give all the players credit. They want to enter the portal. That's great, and hopefully they each find all the success they're looking for. I was surprised Wilcher did. Now, it definitely means there's more to come for St. John's. They missed out on Xavier Lee, who went to Florida. Again, losing another point guard to Florida, it's like Walter Clayton all over again. But it tells you they're looking at getting a point guard, and Wilcher probably did not want to compete. Now, I'm not saying compete, but I think was looking for more minutes. And I don't blame him. I mean, he was in year 3. This looked to be a development year for him. Wilcher had a classy statement on X saying he was glad to be part of that first recruiting class for Rick Pitino, and he showed flashes, but there were flashes. I think people were hoping for a little bit more consistency from him, but hopefully he finds success. We'll see. Still, RJ Lewis is still in the transfer portal. We'll see if he goes to the NBA or not, but this to me is a great get because Jackson can shoot the three, about 39%. Donald's All-American, and he comes home. Jackson's a local player from New York, and I think anytime you get that, you'll take that in a heartbeat. Now the key is going to be, again, you've got to get a point guard. The question is going to be really what they look for in a point guard. And one guy, David Baroff, does a great job on Eye in the Storm, adding to Jackson. This is not Eye in the Storm podcast. It's really great. Talked to Jackson's high school coach and said Ian has a flair about his game. He loves the spotlight, and no better place to do it than New York City and St. John's. I think he is just scratching the surface. No better coach to push it out of him than Rick Pitino. The key is going to be, again, what the point guard is. Now, that guy like PJ Haggerty entered the portal out of Memphis. Maybe St. John's throws a lot of money at him. But there's a report from Matt Norlander this week. He does a great job at CBS Sports about how St. John's could be one of the teams that has a lot of NIL money to spend. Now that helps with Mike Rapoli in the mix, but when you can dole out the money that St. John's can dole out in this kind of market, we'll see what happens. But you lose Simeon Wilcher, Kamon Baker into the portal. He just landed with DePaul apparently. But you're looking at really the only guys returning from last year are Zuby and a lot of the guys off the bench. Guys like Ayo, Leviatopoulos, Ruben Prey, Iwachukwu. A lot of different players, but you're starting to see where you have Sellers, be that shooting guard, Sinan, and then that front court combo of Hopkins and Ejiofor. And I think it's clear Pitino wants to build around that front court duo. It's just about finding that point guard. We'll see what happens with that, but that's the story for right now. So again, if you missed it, St. John's making a big move today. They added 2 transfers Sellers over the weekend, but the big move that came out right after we went on the air was the Ian Jackson to St. John's news. And last but not least, let's do some Syracuse. And I think all eyes are going to be on the draft, at least this week, for the Cuse and where Kyle McCord ends up and what the best situation is for him. But Syracuse got to look at what's next for them. And I think what's been interesting in this process is, again, you look at quarterback, and a lot of the talk was maybe Ricky Collins Jr. as the next guy, but he doesn't have a lot of experience. Well, something might change for Syracuse. The interesting report coming out from Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports is Notre Dame transfer Steve Angeli is going to visit Syracuse. Now, when you look at Steve Angeli, of course, last year was a backup to Riley Leonard. But you look at the Cuse, they need a guy with experience. And I think it's always good to have a player that can help out in terms of being a veteran. He's 21 years old, actually local from here. He's from Westfield, New Jersey. Was born and raised Bergen Catholic High School. So a chance to go local for him. You look at his collegiate career, he's only attempted 80 passes so far, but he's completed 58 of those 80 passes. 2 years ago, he had 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. He got into the playoff game against Penn State a little bit, had 44 yards on 6 of 7. But you look at him as a quarterback, 6'2", 205 pounds, and if he can at least be competition for Ricky Collins, if they land him, that would be pretty good. Syracuse did take a hit in the portal, losing Trevor Pena. Remember, Gadsden, the tight end, is in the draft, so Syracuse is going to definitely have a little bit of retooling to do next year. But if there's a guy you can trust with this retooling, it's Fran Brown, who had a really good first year. I think is the right leadership style for this Syracuse team. And I think having a good duo at quarterback and at least a competition in the summer, if they do land Angeli, is going to be a strong move. Remember, Syracuse opens the year with Tennessee, who will have a new quarterback after Nico Amaliava transferred to UCLA, which is going to make Taryn kind of happy to watch Nico this year. So real quick before we wrap up the show, again, a couple of quick news and notes about this show. As I mentioned, we will be going live next Tuesday as our next full show, all the sports, stuff like that. No show on Monday. Next show will be Tuesday. So mark that down your calendar, the 29th, same time, noon Eastern. But starting May 9th, we are going to go to Fridays. Probably same time, but we'll have more updates on when that might possibly be. But we are making the change solely for the summer, and then we will renavigate in the fall and what we're doing with that. But again, we are now live exclusively on YouTube. We are only on YouTube. So if you enjoy this show, enjoy any of our shows, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You get all of our regional shows, all of our one sports shows. Great stuff going on. If you subscribe, hey, drop a comment. Whether you're listening now live or listening later, drop a comment saying you subscribed because of New York State of Sports. We would be happy to have you aboard. Happy to have you on our team. Again, follow me on X, @Rickinator555. It's at RICK, letter I, Nader like Terminator 35s. And follow the show at NY State Sports IE. I'll be doing some live tweeting tonight for Pistons Knicks. We're going to see if we want to do another show this week. Could be a game 2 post game tomorrow. It could be a draft show after Friday morning after the draft in game 3 of the Knicks. A lot of show ideas in play that we're working on, trying to see what makes the most sense. But we will try to have at least one additional show this week and then dive into all the sports next week when we have a draft recap, look back at April for the Yankees and Mets, Devils, of course, and then latest in the Rangers coaching search. So should be a fun night. The Garden, game 2, Knicks Pistons, 7:30 Eastern against TNT MSG. Can the Knicks get up 2-0? Can they kind of put a stranglehold on the series? I know home court did not have changed yet, but to ask the Pistons to win 4 out of 5, I think is a tall order. So big one for the Knicks to get tonight if they can get it. The Pistons are still kind of shell-shocked. We'll see how that young team recovers and take Cunningham to put on a performance of the age. I think he's going to need that tonight. Unless Tobias Harris goes for 35 again. What's the next Rangers coach? Again, I don't think experience the first time, but ever that matters. To me, it only matters what they change with the players going to next year. Before those changes are the most important thing. It's not about what coach they bring in. The Devils bounce back tomorrow night in game 2 and move on from there, where they can maybe stop the Carolina Hurricanes from pretty flush shot the game. But Neil from Carolina Sports Update, we'll have more on that later in the day. When he does his show, it gives the Hurricane side of things. That Mets and Yankees are playing well. Mets are winning the series. Yankees have taken 6 of their last 7. Both have some really fun playoff rematches. I think it's going to be more fun playoff atmosphere. I don't see them. I think the Guardians fans are going to come out in full force. Playoff like live. Even though we're a long way to go in April, we're also about to the series in both and both tomorrow night. Thank you for all tuning in this week. A lot of people in the chat today. Larry, Jen, Ralph, Aaron. Great stuff from all you guys. Great stuff from you guys. Usual stay tuned for all the great shows coming up here on iSports Radio today and throughout the week. A lot of fun. We got some great things here the next